overnight international field trip proposal for 36 grades 9 through 12 students to attend the presidential inauguration in January of 2021 in Washington, D.C.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Motion to approve an overnight international field trip proposal for 36 grades 9 through 12 students to visit Greece.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we will make a motion to approve the minutes of October 15th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We can jump to subcommittee reports. Policy and personnel, just one item is that we tabled the motions from the October 15th meeting. They will be removed and go into immediate effect, and our next meeting is on November 5th. And do we want to do teaching and learning?
Sure.
Sure, let's go with that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Short agenda on our last teaching and learning subcommittee meeting. 2 items. The first item was a update on the illustrative math program that's being in full implementation at our middle schools and piloted in our high schools, thanks to the success in the middle school area. Assistant Superintendent Regan has reported that one of the biggest changes that we're seeing in students is the way that they talk about math and continue to engage with the material long after the lessons ended. We're seeing some shifts in terms of their attitudes towards math, being able to identify themselves. I think a lot of us fall into that bucket. I'm not a math person. Mr. Domenici might be a little different. That's his line of work. Mr. Storrs and Mr. Larson, I mean, that might be, more your speed. Myself, I don't happen to be one of them. Perhaps if, combined with ST math and illustrative math, I might feel a little bit differently. But the success at the middle school level has really been encouraging to move it up to the high school level, where the pilot has continued to expand. So while we're hopeful that will, yield better MCAS results, the long-term focus is not necessarily on those achievement scores, but again, how do students, identify as, being math proficient and their willingness to continue to engage. Am I miss anything, Assistant Superintendent?
No, thank you. Covered it.
The second item was an update on the endeavor, the Be Heard endeavor, which relates directly to our strategic plan, which is all focused on community engagement. For the last year and a half, the administrative team, in conjunction with other members of the staff, faculty, and community members, have been exploring ways to bring more people to the table, to get a sense of the community's perceptions of the schools, but also to really dig into some really positive but difficult questions about what is the student experience here, and also what is the community interaction with the school. So they have been exploring that over the last, again, as I said, 18 months. Now moving into the phase where they're getting more public. They're starting to do some climate-based surveys out in the schools that will start in the high school, move on down. They've done a book study in terms of looking at cultural awareness, cultural sensitivity, and ensuring that as our community becomes increasingly diverse, that we're reaping those benefits and we're not unintentionally alienating those who have cultural differences just due to general ignorance. And I think long term, this is going to bring more people into the fold. I think one of our greatest strengths of our city is the diversity, and the more people who feel welcome and a part of the schools, the more likely we are to reach our vision to be at the center of a community united around education. So be on the lookout for opportunities to get engaged, and to be part of it, and to, as the title of the program is named, Be Heard. And we're just grateful to the Nellie Mae Foundation, who has provided the initial seed funding for the Everyday Democracy, who's been providing kind of the infrastructural support. And I think we were looking at potentially getting more. Is that has the additional seed? So Nellie Mae Foundation has provided additional money based on the progress we're making. I don't think it's being boastful to say that the reports back that we've received is that we're really ahead of the game in terms of where we are, and I think that Attleboro is a model for where some of the other partner districts for Nellie Mae across New England is looking to go. So, you know, I think that's going to be a running theme of tonight's meeting, not just with particularly in regards to civic engagement. So, I just want to thank Assistant Superintendent Regan and Ms. Halsey for all the efforts that they've done to make this a reality. It's been yeoman's work, and it's just another thing that we should be proud of. So, thank you. Is there anything that I missed? in that
You summed
description?
it up very well. Thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Very good. All right. And before we turn it over for the Spotlight event, I just want to also thank Ms. Regan for the very nice professional teacher status ceremony that we just had prior to this meeting. It's a nice way to recognize those teachers. And we'll turn it over to our Spotlight.
Thank you. I'd like to call up Mr. Rooney and his team, who he will introduce to us.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the committee for the opportunity to be here tonight. It's been a nice opportunity for us the last couple of years to have our Spotlight meeting at this time of the year because of the fact that we are on the cusp of probably one of the most important events that we have at the high school, and that is Blue Pride Night, which is our annual open house and student showcase. It is going to be on Thursday, November 16th from 6 to 8 p.m. And families will enter through the pool entrance, but we will have activities going on in the large gymnasium, in the principal's lobby, in the cafeterias, as well as in all of our CTE labs. I'm very grateful to my administrative team who's here tonight, Mrs. Hickox, Assistant Principal for Unified Student Services, Mr. Gorman, Assistant Principal for Curriculum and Supervision, as well as Ms. Montagano, our Director of CTE. And what we would like to do tonight is we would like to showcase how our students are able to access the curriculum and build community connections through experiential learning. And to steal Mr. Quinn's line just a couple of minutes ago, obviously the district always seeks to engage, challenge, and inspire students, but this portion of our Spotlight meeting is really summarized by that last portion where we look to inspire all students to maximize their unique potential and improve our world. And we're starting by trying to improve our very small world, which is the city of Attleboro, in hopes of preparing our students to move forward into the bigger world and make a difference. So tonight, we're very fortunate to have representation from 4 different programs that have very strong community connections. We are going to hear from students that are in the Science and Public Policy course, specifically the School Farm to Table Initiative. So I want to thank Mr. Weinstein and Mr. Finale for helping us with that portion of the presentation. We're also represented tonight by Mrs. Lane's government class. Mr. Hodges couldn't be with us tonight, but Mr. Hodges leads up the 2030 project. And last but not least, we have Ms. Halsey's community internship program. So to begin with, I would like to ask our students that are with Farm to Table and Science and Public Policy to join me. That's perfect right there. So before the students share with you their perspective on either having been in this class or currently being in this class, I think some of the things that have been very relevant that the Science and Public Policy course and School Farm to Table initiative have been able to accomplish includes working with our representatives from Whitson's to eliminate the use of styrofoam in our cafeterias. A few years ago, we were able to have some students eliminate the styrofoam trays, and we are continuing to work with Whitson's to see if there are other ways where we can eliminate styrofoam. There has been efforts to raise awareness of mental health through a mental health awareness group, and several of our students, not only through these particular courses, but also through the Student Advisory Council, the Student Council, have been working on trying to find ways to improve recycling, not only at the high school, but also to spread that out throughout our community as well. A couple of aspects of the actual school farm to table component is that students work in our greenhouse area, and they actually have crops that come from the greenhouse that are used not only in our Blue Pride Bistro, but also in our community as well. So we've had the opportunity to branch out, no pun intended, with Farm to Table and be able to incorporate some of the students from our early childhood program to teach them about the importance of sustainability. But we've also been working with our special education students in the MDAP program who have helped us with both seeding and harvesting in the greenhouse. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the 4 representatives from Science and Public Policy and Farm to Table.
Hello everyone, my name is Kyle McCabe. I'd like to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to speak here, and thank you for listening to what our experience was and why we think these field trips should be done more often. One thing I thought was awesome about doing our experiential learning field trip was that the enjoyment of being outside of the classroom and actually being able to get outside and get our hands dirty was, even though it was really cold that day, being able to participate all day made it really unique and interesting. And then also being physically active all throughout the day besides keeping warm was, for me, much more interesting than sitting in front of a traditional classroom setting, like sitting on a chair in front of a book or a computer. So actually being able to pick vegetables like carrots that we ended up picking at the farm, and be able to eat them and watch the processes of what it takes to grow and clean them instead of doing a project on them made this whole trip worth it, and I think we should do it more often.
Hi everyone, my name is Benjamin Wood, and it's an honor to be here today. If I had to take one thing that would be on our field trip, would be the value of hands-on experience would be one of the most important from my perspective. And I was very interested in it as a career, and it would be a great experience to see the daily adaptations we go through on the farm. And it was amazing how many vegetables they could grow on the farm, and the quality of the vegetables was outstanding, I thought. And it was exciting to see that the people really enjoy and value what they do. It can reflect greatly on their work and what they do on the farm.
Good evening, school committee. Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Eddie Purica, and I'm here to talk about the value of local involvement with our class in particular. So, you may or may not know, our greenhouse this year actually got damaged and is decommissioned. So, going to these field trips, having this experience of like getting our hands dirty, picking carrots and stuff, really helps us out, gets us like more experience. Like, oh, this is actually where your food comes from. And from this farm, we also learned that there are multiple community-supported agriculture groups that support hundreds of people every week. And there's just a lot more farms that do the same thing.
Thank you for having me here. My name is Harlan Jackson. And going to this farm was a really great opportunity for me personally, because even though I'm not personally interested in undertaking any kind of farming career, it was really wonderful to learn about all of the different ways that science and the things that we learn in class apply to the real world around us. And personally, I can attest that it makes me feel like my work has more purpose in class. I'm more interested in what I'm doing, even if it's research, when I know that there is some, it's involved in outside the classroom. And harvesting sweet potatoes and carrots and getting to eat them afterward was really fun, and it heightened my enjoyment of the class, even the research areas of it. So I think that this kind of learning experience is really important for not only myself, but other students that would want to take a class like this.
Okay, thank you guys very much.
Next, we're going to showcase Mrs. Halsey's community internship. As you can see here on the slide, we are doing the best we can to place students based on career interest or transferable skills. Our biggest goal is, though, to make sure that we are building community partnerships and setting a strong example in our feeder schools as well. There is a strong writing component to this community internship. And again, there is a responsibility that these students communicate regularly about their experiences. So I would like to ask the community internship representatives to come forward, please.
Nathan, you get started.
Hello, my name is Nathan McCrowan, and I have been taking part of an internship at Hyman Fine Elementary, where I actually went to elementary school, and I provide assistance for my first grade teacher, Mrs. Hopkins. I mainly help her out by really focusing on the students that struggle to maintain the level that the rest of the class is going on, specifically with high frequency words, specific math, how to write numbers to make sure they're not backwards. And one thing that I really learned is that as you go on with students, some learn in different ways. Some are a lot more shy, obviously, some are more talkative. So you really have to pay attention to specifically how they improve. Some will improve by working in groups. Even in high school we do the same, or just working by themselves and they don't really want to talk about it to other people. And then what I try to do is I try to get as most possible out of each student and then see where they go wrong, and then I can improve them from there. So that's one thing I had to work with Ms. Hopkins, is figuring out how each student would give me the most from them and really just be able to improve it, which I think helps keep every student where they're supposed to be coming out of just elementary school.
Thank you, Nathan. Okay, so next,
Stephanie, whose partner Faith is actually playing volleyball right down the hall. So Faith couldn't be here. But Stephanie is going to talk to us about their experience at Hill Roberts.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Garofano, and I'm a 12 plus and ICE student at Bridgewater State University. My experiential learning opportunity volunteering in Miss Plush's kindergarten class is also tying in with my first semester early childhood education class at BSU. I'm attending a early childhood education class at BSU. I'm attending with a peer student, Faith Hindi, versus my BSU ed coach. I am able to show an even higher level of independence, responsibility, and commitment to my future. Thank you for your continued support of 12 Plus program as well as the BSU ICE program.
Thank you, Stephanie. And now you're going to hear about teaching American Sign Language at the Jack and Jill Preschool.
So I'm Annabelle. My partner unfortunately couldn't make it today. Last week we went to a preschool, Jack and Jill, right downtown, and we got to see the preschool and how all the children interact with each other and how the teachers communicate with them. And now we're going to take it upon ourselves starting tomorrow, and we're going to start teaching them sign language. We've learned from our teacher, Mr. Pandolfino, that if you teach children at a younger age another language, that their brain functions higher than the average monolingual individual. And so we're going to start with Halloween words and then basic like please, thank you. We're hoping that by doing this they'll expand their vocabulary, their learning abilities, their brain function, and just overall their education. So we're starting that tomorrow, and 3 days a week we're heading to Jack and Jill on Tuesday, Thursdays, and for Pete's sake over by Pawtucket on Wednesdays.
okay, thank you very much.
Next, we're going to have a presentation about the 2030 project. The 2030 project is a course that we have installed a couple of years ago that is modeled after the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. It incorporates curriculum from math, science, and the humanities. So here tonight to talk about the 2030 project. Aiden, do you have?
Me and Natalie.
Okay. Natalie, come on.
Hi everyone, I'm Natalie Johnson. Thank you so much for having us today. I'm sure that Mr. Hodges would want to be here if he could. We talked to him earlier today and he was very excited for the opportunity for the two of us to talk to you guys. So I'm part of the 2030 project class, which is an all-year class, and we are focused on connections with inside and outside of our class. We focus on asking questions and, sorry.
That's all.
Taking action in our world and our community. So our plan for this year is to work with the community on more projects. Some of our goals that are like worldwide goals with the 2030 project are clean water, reduced inequality, and reduced hunger. There are 16 overall. 16 goals, and we're all about civic engagement in this class. So in our most recent project, we did research on each one of the specific goals. Mine was reduced inequality, and we spoke out to people in the community that would know more about our topics. And so some people talked to people in City Hall, some people talked to like all over the place. So we could ask questions and learn more about the Attleboro community. So now Aiden with some specific examples.
Yeah, I'm Aiden. I'm proud to be here as a representative of Mr. Hodges' 2030 project class. And I say Mr. Hodges' class kind of loosely because it's largely us just kind of as a team. There's these big goals that we're supposed to, try and take little bites off of, little, nibbles from the bunch and tackle these large things. And it's a difficult task. And, some of the things that we've come across so far, just to name some specifics, the voter registration drive was an awesome thing that our class put on, and I'm really proud of the way it went down and the way we handled it and the way that, we really had to like outreach. We had to be real people in society and talk to like actual, administration and staff and people to like organize the event. And it was a lot of like, Natalie's in the theater program and she had to work a lot with them to like get lights and the stage and everything. And it's a big process, and it's it's kind of eye-opening to see how challenging things like that are to run events. There's a lot more logistical things that you don't really know, and it's a great experience for students to be able to, get in there and, not necessarily digging in the dirt, but still getting our hands dirty with that kind of stuff, because it's, it's tricky and can get messy, and that's, a great experience that our class got to put on. And just one other thing we wanted to highlight was that in terms of the 16 goals that there are, a few years ago, a student named Jason Firestein, I'm not sure if anybody knows him, but he graduated, and one of the things that he put on, he had one of his goals was mental health, like an awareness. That was just like one of the very large overarching, one of the 16 goals. And something that he put on that you guys might have heard of was Stars to Heal Scars. And it was this awesome event for walking around the track to promote awareness for this issue, and it was a really cool thing that he put on. And he had to reach out to vendors to to popularize the event, advertise it, reach out to students and staff, and people in society that are good with that kind of stuff. And it's it's a challenge, and it's something that we're facing every day in that class. And it's a struggle, but it's a healthy one and an enriching one and an empowering one. And it's great to be part of it. It really is. So thank you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, we're going to hear a presentation about American government. And I can tell you things have changed dramatically from when I took American government many, many moons ago. And again, as many of our students have mentioned, this is a very non-traditional classroom setting. So I'd like for representative from American government to come forward and here's some information about them.
Hi, my name is Derek Hubert. I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this class.
So American government obviously is the course. So this was kind of based around action that we wanted to see within our community and mainly in Attleboro. So first we went into small groups. We could pick our groups. I think there were some duos, trios. I think there might be some groups of 4 in there. And then we would kind of pick a issue that we kind of felt interested in or kind of personally wanted to do. I know some people did mental health awareness, pollution in the river, police interaction with the community. I wanted to do something kind of closer to Attleboro specifically, so I did revitalization of our downtown area. Problems that we kind of face in that and how we're kind of trying to get over it, how we're trying to kind of fix that, and how we're making our approaches there. So a big part of it was researching the issue kind of ourselves. Miss Lane would kind of act as a guide, kind of telling us how we could do our research and stuff, but she never kind of forced her way in. It was basically a student-led activity, mainly within our groups. And so we would email people, talk to politicians. I know some people interviewed with then candidate Paul Heroux, now Mayor Paul Heroux. And we could go in on interviews. We could leave the classroom and the school as we kind of needed to, take pictures, do experiments, kind of take photos a lot of the time and kind of interact with the world, see what the problems were, and kind of get a feel from it that way. Then we had to propose a solution. How could we fix this problem? How could we going forward, kind of get this solved? Me personally, I couldn't really come up with a solution for revitalizing the entire downtown area myself. Felt like that was kind of a lot to put on me personally. So I was just kind of going along with how are we kind of trying to fix it now? How are the people in power trying to get this done, be it in government or be it in business, small business owners, big business owners? What are they doing? And so I focused on kind of the Renaissance place, the real estate, and how they were kind of bringing in people, kind of middle class to bring in money, how it would help bring business to the downtown center, get people jobs and working, and spend money in Attleboro instead of going somewhere else. I know the surrounding cities like Norton, Mansfield, Taunton, people or cities with very bustling kind of downtown atmospheres, and have us spend our money here. And because this is a very prideful, I think, community, so I think they want to spend their money here instead of over there, kind of get our city on our feet. Then we would showcase our work at Blue Pride Night, which I thought was cool because we had parents coming over to me and talking to me about this and how they kind of felt passionate in what I was trying to talk about there, which showed me that there is engagement in the city on that, and engaging myself with them I thought was pretty cool. And then as a part of another group's work, the entire class at one point went out on election day, went to precincts of where people were voting, and we'd have them take an anonymous survey of the issues that they voted on, how they voted on it, and who they voted for mayor. And at the end of the day, we came back and we kind of got all our results, and we successfully predicted the mayoral races result within actually a few percentage points very successfully. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and I think that this class just kind of shows that young people can go out there, can change our community, get involved and stuff. And I think that was a very kind of different class for me to take instead of book learning and reading in papers, actually going out and doing it myself. So thank you for the time to speak about that. I think that's my time then.
I just think that a couple of things that really resonate with me throughout all 4 of those courses is that the communication and the interactions, as well as the responsibility that these students have to have. In each of these 4 courses, at some point in time, I've had meetings with students. The teachers do a great job of making sure that the students understand how to communicate with more than 140 characters and emojis and things like that. I mean, they actually write very professional emails, and they request meetings. They come in for meetings, they make presentations. And again, as you can see, there's a tremendous amount of responsibility involved in this as well, because of the fact that, they are going out into the community. We really appreciate the support of their families to allow them to be able to do that, because it is a very non-traditional classroom type setting, but we have found that that is some of the best ways to engage our students in very relevant learning. So we really welcome anyone in the community to come and see the fabulous things that go on here at Attleboro High School. Our target audience primarily are 7th and 8th grade families, because they are the ones that are planning their transition to Attleboro High School. So we want them to feel as comfortable as possible about it. And we also know that some families have choices in terms of their education at the high school level. And so we know for a fact that if they come here, they will see very powerful teaching, learning, and passion about Blue Pride. So Blue Pride Night, again, is on Thursday, November 16th from 6 to 8 p.m.
Thank you very much. Any comments from anyone? Mr. Quinn?
What's been really interesting for me is just to see the growth of this. Each year it's evolving and getting more deep. I'm particularly impressed with the farm project, because you had kind of a serious situation in terms of that greenhouse being condemned. Number one, we need to be part of the solution to get that back up and running, because I think that, I don't know if you've ever been into it, but it was like a MacGyver type setup, like what they did with so little resources. What's that? So I think kudos to you and the faculty, and I would add that I'd love real estate agents to come on in and see Blue Pride, because we got a lot of great houses going up for families, and we can help each other out. So I think the question that I have is, what are some of the obstacles that prevent this type of work from growing that we can support? I mean, there are logistics that you have, but what can we do to contribute to the growth, that add a little fertilizer onto what's already growing?
Well, I'm glad that you asked, because Mr. Gorman and I just collaborated with the superintendent on a memo that is or has gone to Chairman Withers about looking for school committee representation on a very important team that we are assembling to build a new schedule for the high school. 7 years ago, we transitioned from 4x4 block in semesters to a 5-period day for trimesters, but we still have limitations within the schedule that do not allow us to explore all the avenues that our CTE programs should have. We also, as you mentioned, want to be able to find ways to have these types of programs grow, allow for more project-based learning, allow for more cross-collaboration, common planning time, things like that. So Mr. Gorman is, as assistant principal for curriculum and supervision, is going to take the lead on that committee. But we have invited school committee presence on that committee as well.
And in all seriousness, if this is more of a personal interest, I'd be curious in terms of what it would take to get that greenhouse back, and would be happy to try to work to see that because I was really personally impressed. I went to that science and public policy. I had several tomato plants that started off in that greenhouse. They're delicious. They were fantastic. And I just think it's important that students have the access, because that's an obstacle, right? If you don't have access here, field trips cost bus cars, there's all sorts of logistical hurdles there. So whatever we can do to keep it on site. Personally, I would be interested in terms of what that would take.
To go with that, I'm wondering, with the new high school plans, are we looking at the possibility of having a new greenhouse? Is that something we've even looked at? I know that space is tight. I've looked, obviously I've seen the plans, and I don't think I've seen a greenhouse, but it seems like this would be a good time to start thinking about that. Yeah, so there's two issues. One, the price to do the greenhouse through this project was prohibitive. Mm-hmm. And two, there literally isn't space on the grounds in the design.
I wish there was a space nearby that might have some purpose of that nature.
While that's certainly an obstacle that is a sizable one. We've begun conversations about what we're going to do to be able to preserve this work, because it is valuable.
Science labs are going to have some.
Yeah.
our science labs in the new building will have some ability to replicate some of this type of learning environment, but not on the scale that the greenhouse did.
So, 2 years ago, I found my way onto the school building committee for the high school, and I was a participant at Sensata. And one of the reasons I bring this up is that a lot of what was discussed in there was not so much the high school, but education in general. And I know Superintendent Sawyer and Ms. Regan that we've had conversations personally about it. So I'm thrilled to see the continued progression to what I call like 21st century learning and education. I mean, I have 3 kids and they are all separate entities and they learn differently. And if they're anything like me, they don't sit still for very long. So just the idea of moving from that, I think you referred to it as the traditional classroom environment, is what we heard from a few folks, to the more interactive, where students are guiding their education, and educators are more as facilitators and partners in this is just exciting to see. And I know that we're working on that at every level. So I'm excited to see that at the high school. I guess, just to add a question to it is, are there other areas of the community where partnerships could be built? Maybe bringing in somebody with financial backgrounds to kind of, participate in some sort of student classroom or nursing or anything else. I know the CTE program has, many different options, but I'd be curious if there were areas that the high school would like to reach out to and maybe, whether it's us or just making that plea, we may know people that could make that connection happen and continue to grow this whole process.
Sorry, in the
Can I
back.
speak to that?
Yes, you can.
So, we are working on a database to hold those contacts that we all share amongst us, but we just haven't finalized like the platform that we want to use to make it accessible. We've tried a couple different ones through the guidance department, but we want to make it accessible to everybody, and we're still working on that. So we're building them, but they're not in a place yet. So.
Okay.
Thank you for your
Good
interest in
good to
that.
know. I may have a follow-up or two for you.
Great.
Anyone else?
Well, I would just like to add that, the educators that are, leading these programs really are to be commended for the risks they are taking. This is uncharted territory, and there's no easy playbook for them to follow. So every day that they get up, they have to plan lessons for kinds of things that there really aren't good models for, is an act of bravery, especially when you've got a classroom of teenagers in front of you to answer to. So I just can't say enough how much I appreciate that they've answered the call, that we've asked them to go in this direction, and people are stepping up and trying, and we're learning as we go. I don't think anyone thinks that we've perfected this, but I can't say enough that I appreciate how much I appreciate that the educators are taking that risk.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rooney. Thank you to your staff, and thank you for the students for embracing that challenge that they're given. So,
Thank you for your support, and thank you for having us here tonight.
all right, thank you.
Can we steal Aiden for a picture outside?
Absolutely. Well, he was going to go next, so we'll just.
I have these for you. Because Joe's scale says in it. And that's my quote.
And you're ready.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, we got extra.
Okay, so,
Report?
yeah, please.
Sorry to clear the room.
We're used to it. Okay, I have a couple of brief items on my report this evening. The first is about the bulletin. At our last meeting, we talked about metrics. I have to admit that they aren't the most advanced metrics, but as of this morning, we had 300 views on the bulletin. The vast majority, 250 of those views, were through our Facebook post of the bulletin. That's where most of it came, but there were another 50 that came from the direct link that was sent out in various settings. So, certainly we hope to expand on that and to continue to grow an audience.
But I feel like, that's 300 more people than read the last bulletin. So we've made some real progress, and we're going to continue to build on that. But I know that there was some curiosity about that, and we're going to continue to use that data to reflect on how to do a better job for our next one.
He's thinking about questions. Okay, he's good.
Okay, moving on. As I know many of you were aware, we had the Blue Pride Palooza on Saturday night. I just wanted to thank the Blue Pride, the BPAC, Blue Pride
Ambassadors.
Ambassadors Club, yes, excuse me, for their hard work in making that such a successful night. And while they're still, finalizing the books, we're pretty comfortable in saying that they've met their goal of having a $200,000 donation to the schools over 4 years. So that's really impressive. And that was another successful night on Saturday. So thank you again to the BPAC. Mr. Rooney stole my thunder on telling you about an invitation coming to the school committee to have someone participate as a liaison on the committee for the high school to investigate a schedule. I think we all knew, for those of us that were involved in the decision to change the schedule back 7 years ago, that the schedule that we were adopting was not going to be a permanent solution, that it was the step that we could take at that time. I would say that it was, a step in the right direction, but there is still more work to be done. There are a lot of things, like Mr. Rudy talked about, there are limitations on our CTE programs that are caused by our current schedule. But also, we still are operating in a world where the schedule does not allow for all of our core subjects to be taught in year-long classes. And that is something that has got to be addressed. That was always one of the goals, and we went from, a 5-credit class being a 90-day experience to it being a 120-day experience. So, that was one of those, improvements, but we have to get to the full 180. The idea that, it doesn't matter how the time is time, is something that, I think we all can appreciate isn't quite true. And that when you have more days in a class, that gives you more time to develop relationships and to bring students along, to develop habits. I always felt like as a classroom teacher that, the really, really great things happened, well into the year, and that, the first half of the year you're really investing in creating the conditions in which, the real payoff comes at the end. And for too many of our classes at Attleboro High School, that never comes. So that's, part of why they're looking into that. So I hope that someone from the committee will be able to join them, because it's going to be really important that the process by which we investigate other options, that the school committee is not only informed but involved in that, because obviously in the end that ends with a negotiation. I wanted to update the committee that I met this morning. Jason Parento and I met with representatives from Attleboro Youth Basketball Association. We sat down with Craig Wright and Adam Straminski. AYBA is one of our biggest partners. They have a pretty substantial use of our facilities, and we wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page about things like security, snow cancellations, a lot of little things to iron out. And in doing so, I really felt like strengthened that partnership with AYBA, and feel really good about the fact that the schools, are honoring our commitment to being, community partners. So I thought that was a very productive meeting. Just wanted to let you know that I will be submitting a proposal for my goals for this school year at our next meeting. So you'll be seeing those in the packet ahead of that. And then the final thing I wanted to tell you this evening is just to remind you that our joint meeting with the Municipal Council is November 15th. may have noticed that's also Blue Pride Night, so parking's gonna be at a premium that evening. But I'm pretty excited the fact that this is the same night that both of those events might enjoy some cross-pollination. But this is a real important opportunity for members of the community to come out and see what this building is really going to look like. We're going to take a 3D tour that is impressive and get a chance to see the design detail that's been added to the building since the very conceptual schematic design was submitted back in the spring. So it'll be an important night for the district on the 15th. I hope people will be able to join us.
What time is that meeting?
They said it.
I think they have set the time.
Thought it was 7, but
I think it's
gotta
7 as well.
check.
I think it's 7 as well. Certainly we'll be promoting that in the coming weeks. Yeah, it's a weird time.
7 p.m. presentation from, I think from.
Yeah, because we're meeting so
Yeah.
the SBC's meeting
Have
at
to meet first
6:45.
at 6:45.
And then the presentation will be at 7.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, very good. And that's in the big large.
That'll be in the Bray.
Okay.
Yep. Because we're expecting a big crowd because it's going to be that amazing.
Very good. Okay.
All right. That concludes my report.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then also an update on the project.
That was it.
Oh, that was it. Okay then. Very good. Okay. Mr. Lancaster, we'll have you go for your report.
Switch over. You know which one it is?
Yep.
There we go. Sorry. It turns out I'm not good left-handed.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Hi again. Just some stuff that's going on at the schools. There's a race for education at Hill Roberts on the 1st. Pretty cool. Some PTO meetings, and there's retakes for a lot of the schools, for the high school and everything. The flu clinic, and then the Veterans Day breakfast for Brennan on the 9th, which is an event that I wanted to highlight. It's something that's a good message for the kids. A lot of kids don't necessarily know what holidays they're getting off and why they're getting them off, and I think it's good that they're doing small things like that, little things here and there. And a turkey raffle. At the high school, retakes canned food drive. I think that's involved with the Leo Club, which is really cool, and I think they may be partnering with Student Council. I was just talking to Miss Pereira about it the other day, so that was really good. The FAFSA Information Day. I think I'll probably be at that. I know there's a lot of seniors that are in the same boat as me. There's a lot of stuff to get through with that, so I think there's going to be a pretty good crowd there on the 4th. For community engagement, the Palooza was awesome. I think I saw a couple of you guys there. It was awesome to be a volunteer there. Thanks to everyone that came to support. And of course, the Blue Pride Night is another thing we want to highlight for a community engagement that's coming up. We're really excited for that. SAC is doing all we can to support that event. And in terms of an SAC update, there's an upcoming winter conference for the student council boards, and it's being hosted here. So we are so pretty much all the student councils from around the area will come and gather, and we develop skills. Leadership skills, communication skills, and we went to one like a couple weeks ago, and it was awesome. So now we're hosting one. We're really excited for that. And it's not on here because it was just added about a couple minutes ago, but I was just speaking out there about, in terms of reaching out to the school farm to table about maybe working with their greenhouse. SAC could definitely gather some volunteers from student council, from our group, and get our hands dirty in there, and maybe just find some volunteer hours in there with some of the teachers and students, and make our way into that, because that's definitely a way we can help improve the school in kind of a smaller scale before the new school comes in. So that'd be really awesome if we could get involved in that. So hopefully some future progress will be made on that. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. And I think that brings us to open forum. This is the time when members of the public may address the school committee. Open for, is there anyone who would like to come to open forum? No, very good. And yes?
I actually just had one small item. It's not so much a public forum, but I figured we were wrapping up. One of the things that just happened this past week is the Rebecca Lynn Whitfield Foundation kicked off the first green screen studio at Hyman Fine. I was fortunate to attend. Very cool. And I think the goal is to have these green screen studios in all 5 elementary schools as well as the 3 middle schools. So it was a nice presentation, you know, and just really cool. I think they were looking for more volunteers to test it out. Very wild, a lot of different backgrounds that they could choose, and there was even a student video that they did as part of the presentation. So, you know, Mike Whitfield was there with his foundation. He's a very unassuming guy, didn't want to be near the spotlight, but he wants to do what he can to help everyone. So I just wanted to give some acknowledgement to that because it was, I thought it was a really cool thing, and I hope to see the next ones kick off.
Thank you. That's it. All right, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.